All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of Bluejay Banter. Today I'm joined by my buddy Mike Roshone. He is a moderator on our On3 site called BlueJayBanter.com. Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Them.
Thanks for joining us. Today's going to be kind of exciting. We're going to start talking about the roster and basketball. Today we're going to kick off talking about all the players who were on the team last year who are coming back. And then tomorrow, Friday, we'll wrap up the week by talking about all the new faces. And it is a little bit strange this year because it's about 50-50 of new faces and old faces. So we'll talk about that. First, I want to mention make sure to hit that subscribe and like button. It helps us out a ton as we grow the network. We're growing it. I've seen some new subscriptions here the last couple of days. So continue to do that. Make sure you share this with all your friends. And then we'd also like to thank our sponsors. Today's sponsored by Infusion Brewing Company. Um, as you know, we've had events there, and they've always been really well attended. And we're going to do some more of that this year. They've got a great tasting room down at 6271 South 118th Street. So it's just if you're on the interstate and the Oak Hills Golf Club is on your north, if you just on the south, um, on the other side of the interstate. Infusion Brewing Company is right there, and their tap room is tremendous. It's really a cool tap room. You can get all kinds of, as I said the other day, you can go in there. You can get like a tray of 8 beers, and you can taste test all of them. Weekends they're open. Saturday they're open at noon. Sunday they're open at 2. And then the weekdays, generally Thursday, they're closed on Mondays, but Tuesday through Thursday they're open at 4, and then Friday they're open at 3. So great place to go down. They've got a pizza oven that's really good pizza, and great place to go test out these fabulous beers like I talked about. So check them out. That's Infusion Brewing Company in Southwest Omaha. All right, let's get right to it. These players we're going to talk about are in no particular alphabetical order or numerical order or anything like that. We're just throwing them out there. Um, it is interesting of all the players coming back. I don't believe any of them are seniors. So um, we've got a couple of newcomers, Josh Dix and Nick Graves, who are seniors. But other than that, so this is a really young team. So I think that's the first thing we've kind of got to think about. We're expectations are so high for the Blue Jays each year. Wouldn't you agree, Mike?
Yeah, I yeah, it's one of those things. I think the expectations from Creighton fan base, I think they're always high. I think that's the nice thing of what Greg McDermott has built with this program is that, regardless of guys that are lost, guys that are coming back, everybody has faith in Greg now to build to keep this program at a high level. Even though maybe the rest of the country doesn't expect a lot from Creighton, this area does. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. We're still like under the radar a lot of times, even though
right.
top 15, top 20. All right, let's get started. So we'll start with Ty Davis. Um, Everybody you talk to, and I think you heard Mitch speak the other day. Everything you talk to, everybody's pretty high on Ty and the improvement he's made, and he looks just more comfortable about that. Now, the last practice I was at last week, their last practice before they took off for home, Ty didn't practice. He had a little Achilles issue. I got to have a little one-on-one with him for about 5-10 minutes, so it was cool. And he said he really wanted to practice, so I didn't think it was anything too serious. But coach called him the night before and said, "Ah, we're gonna rest you. It's the last practice. There's no reason for you to be out there." Um, he just seems to me to be a guy. Two things. One, seems to me to be a guy that really is not came into this saying, "I'm just not gonna hand over the point guard job to either Josh Dix or Nick Graves. I want to be that point guard, and I see that in him." And number two, when you're next to him, he's a lot bigger guy than you think he is. I mean, he's put together pretty well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree that his size is definitely deceiving. And kind of like what you talked about with not wanting to just, hand over the starting point guard. He has that confidence. And that's what point guards need. All the good point guards that Creighton has had, they've had that confidence, that swagger, to go out there. And, I think you saw it a little bit in the Big East tournament game against DePaul. He was thrown in there and hey, go. We have nothing else. We need you to perform and we need you to play. And he did. So, hopefully building on that in the off season, and gaining that confidence, or sustaining the confidence that he has, is going to be massive for Creighton. I mean, even if he's not starting, I think this is going to be a very deep team. So he's going to play. So whatever he needs to do, whatever confidence he needs to have, I think he has it.
Yeah, he no moment's too big for him. That's kind of what
Right.
I always said about him. Yeah. Um, Also, his shot's much better this year. I mean, just not only in the full contact scrimmages, but just shooting. I could just see he's got a bit of rotation on the basketball, so that's good. Probably a player that would probably get more questions about over the last 2 years than any other player, and that's Jason Green. Everybody always asks if they say, "Hey, how's the team doing? Hey, how's Jason?" Everybody's always interested in Jason Green. Um, I would say his shot's even better than it was last year. What I've seen so far. He's really a guy I really haven't talked much about this when I've gone to these couple practices here in the summer because what you got last year is what you're going to get this year. That's just the way he is, and he's a big cog, obviously in for our team because he can guard multiple positions. He's a guy with a big body who what we need. And until like we'll talk about tomorrow, until we get Owen Freeman back, I mean, he's kind of our one post player right now.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. You kind of know what you have in Jason Green. I will say it was kind of weird the slow start that he got off to last year. It was just, it was strange, coming off of how well he played in the NCAA tournament the year before. And I guess the high expectations that Creighton fans had for him last year, and they kind of getting off to a slow start. And then, I don't know what it was, halfway through the season or whatever, it clicked, and he started to be the Jason Green that we all expected. So, I think that everybody is high and excited about Jason and what he is going to bring to the table. Like you said, if he's out there starting at 5 in that in that first game, it'll be
Yeah,
interesting,
yeah. I hope not, and we'll get to more of that.
right?
Talk about it. But yeah, there was one practice I went to. I think I saw him miss one 3-pointer the whole practice, which is when you look at that from 2 years ago. Oh my word, what an improvement! So, a guy.
Right. I mean, he made those threes against UConn, and it was just kind of caught everybody off guard, and then we
Oh
kind of all
yeah,
expected it.
yeah, yeah. And then we didn't
So,
see it for a while, and then it came back. Yeah, absolutely.
right.
A guy you and I know really well. We've both been on the golf course with him, and a guy we just really I always root for this guy, and that's Isaac Trout. I do kind of think though, like he's gonna really have to perform this year because he almost feels, and I don't want to get too carried away here, but he almost feels like he could end up as the odd man out because his position is so crowded. He's kind of locked in. He can't float to the three like Green can, like maybe we will with Jackson. Uh, Certainly, like a Hudson Greer can float. All these guys we brought in could play possibly like Austin Swartz, Blake Harper, all those guys could possibly play the three. Isaac can't because he can't guard threes. The plot positive for him though, as we just mentioned, if Owen's out longer than expected, Isaac can put a little time in at the center position, and then to me, he's probably as close. Although he's bigger, maybe not bigger physically, but certainly he's got 3-4 inches on Rogge. Another guy that you look at and you don't think he's that tall until you stand next to him. And it's like, hey, he's pretty tall. Um, but he could take a Rogge role, because he's such an excellent shooter.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he is very he's of like you said, of all the returning players, he's kind of a very interesting case. And obviously, like we talked about, I mean, I don't know if I can cheer hard enough for an individual that I do for Isaac. He's going back and knowing and watching him play in high school and being the guy at Grand Island, and then going to Virginia and obviously wasn't a fit, and then coming back here and having to like retrain his body, and being a type 1 diabetic is always is tough. You can't train the way everybody else trains. And so I think he's, going from being the guy at Grand Island to, more of a reserve role. And then, I think we would all love to see him get back to that aggressive play that he had in high school. I think it's great he's bought into that Creighton culture. But there's times where, yeah, man, a quick head fake blow by because he is athletic enough. We just like to see him, do a little bit more than just being a shooter. And I think if he does a little bit more, that's going to open up more playing time for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did see a little bit of that last year, a little more aggressiveness, especially rebounding. So, but I think it's a guy, I know this is the deepest roster Mac has probably ever had. Well, I don't think it is the deepest roster Mac's ever had. But he's still, I still believe when we get into January, he's going to put out the guys he trusts, and he trusts Isaac. So I would think from that perspective, he's going to get a guy who just got in the offseason got 2 more years. So we know where he sits in the in the pantheon right now. So we can say he's a junior, I guess. That's for Vizor Zukic. Fedor looks great. I'll say that he one of the most of the guys that have came back. Ty jumps out at you, and then Fedor would be second. Fedor looks great. His body looks great. He's actually bulked up even more. His jump shot looks phenomenal. I mean, it seems he seems to be, maybe this is getting too over dramatic, but he seems to be just a guy that's playing really freely now that he knows what's going on. Um, yeah, he's a perfect three for us. I think they only list him at 6'4", if I'm not mistaken. But uh, I again, a guy that I think's bigger than that and plays bigger than that. Um, I will say this about Fedor. What I've known, especially the second practice I was at, he got a lot of special attention from Coach Mack on defense. So, there was times he was upset with himself for not being in the right position, and there was other times where Mac just said, "Hey, this is what you got to do." So I thought the first practice I saw, I thought his defense was pretty good. It wasn't as good the second time. So maybe that's, kind of the roller coaster that these guys go through defensively. And I think that's probably even more so than other years. I think they've really focused on that at this point in the season because obviously plus they have so many new guys that they've got to like get them into what we want to do. And plus we're going to cover some of that ball coverage differently without Kalkbrenner. So it's a little bit different. But Fedor, I think everybody, I think probably in the last 6 months, everybody asked about Fedor, and that's he's going to be a key cog to this team.
Yeah, he's probably for me personally, like the guy I'm most excited about coming back. I mean, you saw those glimpses at the end of the year, against like St. John's, ball fake going and hammering it at Madison Square Garden, and then, the play, basically allowing us to go to overtime against, DePaul. The way he played in that Big East tournament game. So like, you saw those glimpses of how good he is. And early in the season, and yeah, obviously nobody knew when he was going to be eligible. He didn't know when he was going to be eligible. Then all of a sudden he becomes eligible. Doesn't know how long he's going to be eligible for. I mean, that's just a lot for a college kid to deal with. Then you got your family thousands of miles away. And so being able to hang out and get to know all these Creighton players. Build that brotherhood with all the Creighton players, and have that off season. And now all of a sudden, yeah, I got 2 more years. Like I can just play basketball. There's probably no better feeling in the world for Fedor. And so kind of like you talked about, I mean, I'm expecting very big things from him this year. I'm excited about it. And he's exactly what Creighton needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Next is Jackson McAndrew. Not a lot to say about him other than what you saw last year is what you're going to get again this year. I think he's bulked up a little bit, not crazy like you go, oh wow, but I think he's bulked up a little bit. I only saw him once. The second time, oddly enough, he was at not oddly enough, but he was at a Nike camp by Jason Tatum, something that Jason Tatum hosts. So that's pretty high honor that he got invited to that. So Jackson's getting a little bit of national love here. Um, but yeah, I think when you look at these guys, like Max said, when the season ends, the first thing he's got to do is recruit his players back. Jackson's a guy, yeah. We're gonna have to make sure he stays. We're gonna have to make sure Ty stays. I think Jason, Isaac, Fedor, I think they're here. I, and I could be wrong, but I think those three guys, especially, excuse me, the local angle of Jason and Isaac. I mean, that helps. And then Fedor's gone through so much. I think Fedor's just like, I wouldn't want to go through that again, moving to another school. So I think those three are good. I had an assistant coach tell me last year that they think Jackson will be all Big East, like first team Big East, probably either this year or next year. That's just how much they think of Jackson. And, he's got such a terrific shot. I think the big thing people would look for, and I think something he's going to have to do this year without Kalk, is show his size a little more. Whether that be blocking shots, defending, rebounding, what have you.
Yeah, I completely agree. And one thing that was nice last year with Jackson is just, you know, kind of, as you got it more into Big East play, like how much better he got defensively. That was good to see because I mean you kind of what you have with him on offense. Obviously, hopefully he adds more to that. Not just a shooter. A ball fake guy, mid range jumper. If it would be nice. He's huge. Back to the basket game, gets a little bit stronger. But, defensively, especially this year without Kalkbrenner, you're going to need some size. You're going to need guys to rebound. That's where you look to Jason Green. I think Fedor was an underrated rebounder last year. And you need in Jackson with how big he is, that it's a guy you need to get in there and crash the boards and rebound. So, you know, I think a big storyline, and I'm sure everybody's talking about it, is how is Creighton going to be defensively this year without Kalkbrenner? It's going to be more of a team defensive structure, but it's going to be all hands on deck from a defensive standpoint, and Jackson's going to be a major part of that.
Yeah. I think, from a being in the right defensive position and stuff, I think we're going to be better. But I mean, there were, when a shot went up in inside of 6 to 8 feet from the basket in over the last 4 years, we pretty much just Cuckle get that one, or
Right.
you're almost surprised when he didn't get one, that's probably not going to happen. So, the over at bluejaybanter.com, and we haven't done, I don't think we did last year, but I'm going to revise it here as we get into the dog days of August and post that. If you, I'm sure Mike, you remember it when we just go through all the years of recruiting classes, and you can see, like, I think the Zirden recruiting class, and we had some. Zirden was the one guy that came through in that class, but I think we had a couple others that didn't hardly ever see the floor, and there was only three. And then you didn't think much of it, but then you saw 2, 3 years down the road, this team didn't get very far, didn't get the NCAA tournament and so forth, and that was a direct result of that recruiting class. Um, so you hope 2, 3 years down the road, us losing Reby, a guy that we really wanted, was kind of a cult clone and a guy that really could have helped you. You hope that doesn't bear out. Now, again, Mac's done a masterful job of losing some of these guys in the recruiting battle, but then they're a little bit disenchanted where they're at or what have you, and they come back. Isaac's a perfect example, and he's had others. So maybe um, this is another guy. I mean, Josh Dix is probably one too. That we really wanted, local kid. So um, yeah, we'll just see how this all develops. Then we got two guys who were walk-ons, and I can't stress this enough because people still ask me about walk-ons, and I'm like, there are no more walk-ons. There are not walk-ons anymore. There's a 15-man roster. So Shane Thomas and Josh Townley Towns are on the roster. They're not walk-ons anymore. They're full scholarship players. Shane has been hampered with, I think it's a knee. So he hasn't practiced really. He's been on the exercise bike, working out, stuff like that. Josh has been out there. I asked somebody last year, I said, God, I see him in, like, he's running on the scout team. And I'm like, man, is am I just seeing him on good days? Because there's times you look at him and go, wow, this dude looks pretty good. And somebody said to me, well, it's a thing called Ryan Kalkbrenner. He's not going to get a lot of minutes. And I go, okay, yeah, I hear you. Um, but they don't, I don't really know that they think that he is the answer as a backup five. I mean, I think he's a depth piece, certainly, and certainly a guy they can throw out, certainly a guy in those bye games, he's going to see some action. There's times he looks good. I think he you know, just that tick. He's a local kid, just that tick behind the other guys they're looking at. But these guys are valuable pieces, especially two guys that know the ins and outs of being on a scout team. That's going to be real. There, that's probably the thing that fans just don't even think about or undervalue is the value of a really good scout team.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've talked about so much about the Creighton culture and what Greg McDermott. So, in my mind, if Greg has these guys on the team, they're they're unbelievably valuable to the success of Creighton basketball. And, I mean, you saw a few times last year, Shane Thomas coming into the game. And we just talked about McDermott and his trust for people. If you didn't trust him, he's not putting him in the game. So, um,
It,
you know, just it's just, he trusts them, and these guys are so valuable to the organization and to Creighton. And I mean, this is, I know there's no walk-ons anymore, but in the past, I mean, you all these guys that were these scout team guys are so important. Because it doesn't help anybody if, you know, our ones are just dominating and running through these guys. That doesn't help anybody. So having skilled players at that scout team level and being able to run, the ins and outs of what UConn does, knowing that
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
able to show that to our ones and twos. That's just massive. And we always, Creighton comes prepared to all these games, and there's a reason why. It's not just coaching, it's these scout team players.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting too. Like there's been years where um, certain guys emulate. Like it's been nice with Mitch, and now this year with Grizel. You can plug those guys out there on the scout team. Like anytime there's a huge shooter, Mitch is always that guy, and even though he's assistant coach and has an important duty, he'll spend a little time being that guy, and it just helps so much for those guys to understand that hey, you got to get on this guy, from the second that rebound goes up. So. Well, that's it. That's for the guys coming back. Tomorrow we're gonna run down all the new players. Uh, talk about their roles, where we see them. There's probably I would just of the seven we're gonna talk about. I would say there's probably three, four that are gonna play major minutes. And then the other guys are gonna, it'll depend on how they fit in and how they play and how they practice and so forth. But anyway, that'll be tomorrow, Friday. We will break those down. So thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and Mike and I will be back with you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.